Okay, there is a lot of traffic noise in the background, which I'll try to eliminate during the editing process. But just want to show you, this is my silver reclamation from X-ray project. You can see a few things. I'll try to explain them as I go. What you need first off is a whole bunch of X-rays. These are all my wife's X-rays since about 2007, and there's quite a few of them. I've already done a couple of batches, so I have some silver already. This project, I'm lazy. I don't do it very often. Do it 10-15 minutes at a time, maybe a half hour. So it's going slow for me, but you'll see all that's required. It is fairly environmentally friendly because the only thing it uses is standard household chlorine bleach. There are two types of X-rays, which I'll describe later on. The older ones are pre-2018 here in Australia. That's where they seem to have switched over from using a silver bromide film exposure methodology to computer generated imaging, basically using something like a photocopier or printer. So I believe those actually don't have a whole lot of silver, but rather have carbon black as their imaging medium. But the older ones, I've gotten a little bit of silver off of them. And a little bit, meaning I'm not going to get rich off the silver I'm extracting. Probably close to a break-even materials cost when starting from scratch. But overall, yeah, I'll get probably anywhere from 1 to 3 ounces in total of pure silver out of the entire process. At first, I'm just going to show you the current process as it stands, and it only goes halfway through the silver reclamation steps. This is just strictly the tearing apart of the stripping of the silver off the X-ray films. So, what do I have here? We have one bucket with bleach. This has been used, so there is silver at the bottom of this right now. It's actually silver chloride, because this silver on the X-ray films reacts with the chlorine within the bleach solution. Bleach being sodium hypochlorite and water. We have a water bucket to do a first rinse. We come from stripping. We then rinse the films the first time, and then we rinse them again a second time. You'll see later on that there's silver in the bottom of this second bin already. That's from my first days of work. I poured the water from the first one into the second one, and that's what we see at the bottom here. You see that some of the buckets are covered. That is to retain the chlorine in the solution. If I don't do that, it'll deteriorate much faster, and the chlorine bleach will eventually turn into table salt and water, or salt water. And then once the water evaporates, it leaves salt, sodium chloride. Now, this other small bucket that I'm using when the first wash bucket gets too much chlorine in it. I then filter off the chlorine into this wash bucket, into this holding bucket, refill with fresh water, and then as the main bucket gets dirty and needs filtering, etc., I'll then filter that into this bucket, and I can use this for doing my laundry. I can use it, I have already used it for cleaning floors, because it is just chlorine bleach, highly diluted chlorine bleach. But I keep it covered because I want to keep the bleach in there, because I'll put it back into the stripping bucket. Now, I've just used regular household chlorine bleach, and I can filter these back into the bucket, into the original containers, and use them again later. So that's the setup. Now what happens, now you're dealing with chlorine bleach. It's a fairly safe household chemical, but it does put off chlorine gas along with some hydrogen and oxygen as it breaks down. So it is best to do this in a well ventilated area. I'm doing this in my carport next to my house, which also happens to be next to a freeway, so there's a lot of background noise. Now, because I'm dealing with chlorine bleach, I could not use protective gloves, but I prefer just to use regular household cleaning gloves. That way I don't get the bleach on my fingertips, and I don't get extra white. Now I've taken large size X-ray films, and I've come down into something a bit more manageable. You can see the films. I want to find a fairly dark one. There we go. It's somewhat dark. That's a very easy process. Simply put it into the bleach. Now you may see it. We have a bunch of bubbles coming up off the X-ray film. And that's the silver chloride reacting, releasing hydrogen, chlorine, and oxygen gases. And you can see as I dip, you can see the black. That's silver coming off the X-ray films. Now you could just put the X-rays and let them soak in the bleach and then come back after 10 20 minutes and rinse them off. But I find it's just as easy, and I think more efficient generally, with fresh chlorine bleach, to just use a dipping action. Now, because of surface tension of bleach and the film, it's going to hold up here at the bottom a bit longer or harder. Very difficult to get out if it's just soaking there. So that's why I have the tendency of doing the dipping. Now I can tell because of the amount of silver that's come off and how slowly that's coming off, that this solution is probably far more water than it is sodium hypochlorite or bleach. So this is getting very diluted because normally that would be clean already. And I don't see it clean, so I think I'm going to have to recharge my stripping solution, and that's why I bought some pool chlorine. Pool chlorine and household bleach are the same thing, but it has to be liquid pool chlorine, which is sodium hypochlorite, whereas granular pool chlorine is calcium chloride. And I did not want to add an additional chemical into the process that I would have to extract out of the silver at the end. So you can see the black coming off, and that is silver chloride. I don't know why this film, normally they get much cleaner than that, but that's why we have the wash buckets to capture this little bit. So let me grab the first wash bucket. And the second wash bucket. And that comes up pretty clear, pretty clean. And we put those aside to further drip dry. And that's the process. After a while, what I'll do shortly is I'll let that settle again, now that I've disturbed it. And I will siphon this bleach off, filter it into this bleach bucket. You can see a little bit of silver still in there from pouring that into here. I'll let it settle, and then I'll pour some back and recharge it with the pool chlorine to bring up the chlorine concentration again. And I just want the bucket to be a little bit lower in volume. Now I'm not sure that I can show you. Let me see. Oh yeah. Let me change the camera angle a bit so you can, I'll show you the bottom of that bucket. Okay. Now hopefully you can see it there. All that black at the bottom of the bucket is the silver precipitate that's come out. Then that I will pour off into another bucket. Now this is what I'm going to end up with. That is silver chloride. I can pour off the top chlorine bleach back into the bleach bucket. But you see how easily it mixes up? That's very, very fine, like dust. Later in the wash process, I will be using hot water to rinse the chlorine off of it, and that hopefully will help combine some of that silver dust more into silver sand. They'll still be very light, and then after that process we mix it with we mix it with another chemical and household sugar. The other chemical is caustic soda, which is sodium hydrochloride. Now we're dealing with bleach with sodium hypochlorite, and the caustic soda with the household sugar will kick out pure silver as a distillate. Now it may also kick out a little bit of calcium or sodium, table salt, but you wash off the table salt, the silver will be non-soluble, but the table salt will be soluble, so I just use lots of water to rinse off the salt from the silver solution. And that's it for phase 1 of the silver reclamation project. Thanks for watching. There will be a few videos snipped together, and hopefully a lot of the audio will have the background noise removed or done as a overtalk in post edit. This is all new to me, but I'm bored, so I wanted to give it a try.